There's a lot of gum flapping goes on. Everybody's flapping their gap about body fillers and the abuse and the use of it. And I see there's a whole lot of people tell you, well, this is what you do, and that's just what you got to do to make it look nice. The what I'm getting at is pretty much sheeting an entire panel in filler. Nobody really tells you why they do that. Well, that's what you got to do to make it nice. Well, that's not always the case. Sometimes it's about time too. So what I got here, this is a door off of that there. It's a 60, Christ, I don't know what it is. It's a 62 C10, a 64 C10, a 66 C10. I don't know. I don't remember what year it is, and I don't really give a shit. It's not my truck. But this door is going to be very indicative of what you might wind up when you're working on your old hunk of shit. I mean, that's the way it goes. It's all an old hunk of shit until it's not. It's a hunk of shit until it's not. So this is a hunk of shit right now. So this is going to be close. It was painted a time or two. I haven't really done much to this door yet, except I have welded up some ear holes, and I put a corner in the front because it was a rotten hunk of shit. It's not rotten anymore now. It's just a hunk of shit. So I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to this door yet. I don't know exactly what it's going to be like, but I do know what it's going to be like without even checking it out, because I already know, and I'll show you something. So sheeting a panel in filler from one end to the other, hacking it up, butchery, you lazy son of a bitch. Why don't you just do some metal work on it? Why don't you straighten that panel out instead of just filling it full of Bondo? Everybody smears Bondo. You know, I don't really like the word Bondo, but that's what everybody uses. You probably shouldn't get caught using that. Bondo is a 3M patented word. 3M makes a product called Bondo. 3M come up with Bondo. That's their product. Body filler. You just cover it in body filler because you're lazy and you can't do metal work and you're just hacking it up. Well, let's have a quick look at something here. This is some degreaser. So I'm putting her on here because we'll lay a shine onto this. We're going to have to work fast because the shine ain't going to last long. Best way to do this would be to probably put a coat of black paint on it, but we ain't doing that. So now I already know that when I look at this thing, it's going to look like a fat kid jumping on a waterbed. It's going to look like a pond when you huck a rock in it. And I'll show you. I don't know how well this will pick it up. I'll try though. So when I get back, when you look from here, but if you get down here, and now everybody's going to do something different. What you want to do when you're doing something like this is, well, I can't get much from that angle. Find a reflection in the shine. Right? So let's say, for instance, right now, see that's the top of the door that you can see there. So when you're looking at it, find the top of that door and then chase the top of that door back and forth across the surface. Now that tells you what your surface is like. And you see the way that's just kind of all over the place as you move back and forth on it. And I mean, on this angle, you can find, well, actually the inside, that inner curve there, it's got a little work at the top, but it's not bad there. I can't really, it's tough to get something on there. But anyways, regardless, that's how you look at something, right? You find a reflection, be it the window up there, which is right there, or like I said, the top of that door, and you just chase her back and forth. So overall, right, so the door's not bad because it doesn't have any great big, whoa, it's got no big ocean waves in it, but it's got a lot of choppy water on it. Let's put it that way, right? It's got a little whipped cream action going on it. It's a lot of, all the choppiness on it. So how do you fix all that choppiness on there? Because when you paint that, that's how it's going to look, right? It's going to be all choppy and shitty looking. So here's your stigmas involved. How's that? There you go. So one of the things that everybody says, that everybody done, that you used to do, is picking and filing. So if you're over the age of 25 years old, you've probably heard that phrase before, pick and file it. You pick and file it. Well, what do you pick and file? Who's picking and filing stuff? What did they pick and file? Think anybody ever picked? Well, actually, let's start out by explaining what a pick and file situation is. So you get it in bare steel like this. You clean it all down nice and shiny like this. And then you try to find your little dents and your little whacks and your little hoojimafuzzes all over it. And pick and file means you take a pick hammer and you pick up the low spot. I'll show you a pick hammer. You take a pick hammer and you pick up the low spot, bunk, bunk, bunk from the inside. Stop hitting that. And you bump the low spots up, and then you would take, I have a body file, but I don't have it with me. So a body file is a file, but it's on a big hunk of wood, just like a handboard. And then they would take that file and go back and forth, and that file would skip across the high spots on the top. So then you'd go back in with your hammer, and you'd see your high spots would get shinier as it takes that, and you'd see your low spots in between it. So then you take your hammer, and you go back in again, and you'd keep bumping it up, then you'd pick and file, and you bump it up, and you pick and file until your panel is as thin as a piece of tin foil, but it's pretty damn straight. Then after they'd done that, back when they used to do this, then they would probably put a, what would you call it, like a lacquer cellulose putty on it. You know, the old pink shit. It's got no hardeners, it's got no nothing in it. It's just a can of toothpaste, and you scoop it out and smear it on there, and let it sit there for 3 days till the air dries off, and then you'd sand it off, and then you'd put some lacquer primer spray over top of that. And the same thing, you'd let that sit for a couple of days till it dries off, and then you sand that off. And the guys that did that, the shit when they were done, it doesn't look as good as you think. Everybody thinks that, oh man, back in the day, everything looked off. Have you ever seen something that was done in the 50s back in the day when they picked and filed it and did all that shit and used all the lacquers and stuff on it? It looked like shit. It might look all right in a magazine. What doesn't look all right in a magazine? Everything looks nice in a magazine. Up close, I've seen a few of them old hot rods, and they look like shit. And they're all cracking and falling apart, and they're garbage. Point number 2 about that procedure. So, have you ever looked at the inside of one of them old panels? What did they used to pick and file on? They used to pick and file 34 Fords, 32 Fords, 29 Chevs, the 36 Buicks, etc., etc., etc. Have you ever looked at the insides of one of those cars? I'll tell you what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like that. Now, you tell me, if you got a dent right there, and you want to pick and file that up with that in your file, how are you picking and filing that up with that inner door frame on there? Here's your access hole. See how big that hole is? I mean, shit, what's that? That's 2 wieners long and about 10 wieners that way. But I mean, yeah, that's about 2 peckers long, that hole. Now, how are you getting in there with a hammer and successfully picking and filing that? Huh? You're not. You're not. So just cut it out because you're not going to do it. So how else do you do it then? You can get your unispotters and stuff and try to pull the dents up and stuff. But I mean, a lot of them little dents that just barely showed up as a little wave and a ripple, well, how are you going to pull that up? Hey, I'm asking you. Well, you're not. So just cut it out. I'm trying to cover this quickly. So you can try to fill them individually because you got, let's call them dimples. Let's call them dimples in the fat broad's ass, which ain't a bad thing. So this is the cheek. So you got dimples. You got dimples in the fat broad's ass, and I mean they're all over the place on this thing. So what are you going to do? Are you going to mix up some filler, and are you going to get your little putty? I don't got a putty knife on me. You're going to mix up some filler, and then you're going to take your putty knife and you're going to go. Are you going to do that? And then you're going to take your little block and go, and you're going to sand all them spots individually? You might, but I wouldn't. Take that panel and take your filler and do the panel. Sheet the whole panel. It doesn't got to go on there a 1/2 inch thick. Sheet that whole panel, So what I would do to this is I would do some of my bigger work first, right? So I got some welds and some grind and rash and stuff where I put my patch in here. And I know there's a pretty good dent there. And there's a couple of other ones. I welded up some mirror holes up here. And then there's the dent in there from the door swinging open too far and going whack into the fender and putting the dent in it. So that kind of stuff, I would repair the bigger areas first. Get them where they're nice, and I'm happy with how straight they are. Then mix your filler up, and maybe don't put as much hardener in it as you might usually. You got to put enough hardener in it to harden, but go a little lighter on the filler so that you got some time to work it. So then you take your filler with a little bit less hardener in it, and you go end to end, top to bottom, however you want to do it. And you know, like I said, you don't got to put it on an inch thick. And then you take a big, whatever you got to sand it with. I mean, maybe you got a block that's this long. Maybe you should get one, maybe. And then you sand your whole thing. And you keep going until you can see through it. Because you're going to, when you get down there, you're going to be able to see through it. It's going to get dark as you're coming down to the steel. Well, once it gets dark, once you start seeing dark patches in it, the shit's as thick as a piece of paper at that point. So that's not much. I mean, you're way better off. You know, that, like I said, they tell you that that's what you got to do to make the panel nice. A lot of times, that panel coming out straight and nice and giving you that wonderful, beautiful, pretty nice reflection, you could call that a byproduct of saving time, right? Because you got, shit, let's just throw a number out there on this door. There's 29 dents on this door, little tiny waves that it ain't worth, I mean, they ain't nothing, so it ain't worth trying to go in there and trying to dig them out. So by the time you fix all those, this whole panel just winds up being very nice. So you're saving time and not spending 2 days applying filler and not applying filler 14 times to it so the thing looks like a stinking core sample out of an oak tree because you've mixed up and applied 15 different coats of filler to it. If you do that, your filler is going to come out better, so you're not going to have to put some filler on it, then put your 3 coats of primer on it, sand that off, then put more filler over top of your primer because that's stupid, then prime it again, then sand that again, then dig a trough around. Then you're just chasing your tail around until you actually bite yourself right in the bottom of the balls. So don't do that. Do it. Just do it, would you? Just do it. And I mean, one of the things that's about the myth is the products are a hell of a lot better nowadays. Back when they used to want to do this kind of stuff and they used all the lacquer stuff that didn't have catalysts and whatnot in it, well, the shit would break down. The shit was susceptible to heat. It was susceptible to just about everything in the atmosphere. The newer products, once they're catalyzed and put on there, the product is locked down. Once that product cures, especially if it's a polyester type or a urethane product, once it cures, it's cured. It's locked down. Once it's done, it's done. It's called... Never mind, it's called thermal setting, and there's a reason for that, because it sets, it's done. Once the shit is done and locked down and shrinks, the only time that it's not doing that again is if you're putting paint stripper on it. And think about it when you use paint stripper. Does that product, does it turn to liquid and run off of there, or does it wrinkle up into cornflakes and come off as a solid little piece of plastic? That's what it does. So that is why you would wind up butchering up your panel with a full sheet of filler over it. But again, don't leave don't leave all that filler on there. Take it off of there. It sands pretty quick. A lot of times they'll say fix your dents and then put a few coats of just to throw the one name of the product out there, slick sand. So slick sand is a liquid body filler. To make you understand it, to use the word, it's a liquid Bondo. Because it's just a really thin polyester filler. All body fillers, except for your fiberglass body fillers, your Marglasses and whatnot, all fillers, they're a polyester floated in a resin filler. That's what the solid is, and it is polyesters. That primer is a polyester primer. So you put it on there, it's just sprayable body filler, and you get good build out of it, but the shit is hard, and it's hard to sand, and I don't know where you live, but here, that shit is like $150 a gallon. The filler that I use is $35 a gallon, and it's a lot softer when it's hard. It'll sand a lot quicker, but it's still the same product. You can put 5 coats of your slick sand on there. You just put 1 coat of body filler on there with your 5 coats of slick sand. And the body filler will sand 3 times as fast as that slick sand will. I don't use any of them slick sands and shit. I use a urethane primer. I use my body filler on it. I get it to where I'm really happy with it, and it gets 3 coats of high solid primer, and 11 times out of 10, that's enough. I mean, my work might not be, I might not have Heisman trophies for it, but you can go back and look at some of my videos. I show reflections on the sides of some of the stuff I've done, usually a goddamn Dodge Dart, and it's pretty reasonable. It gets a pretty good reflection. They're pretty flat. You know what I'm saying to you? It'll be a lot quicker, cheaper, and easier in the long run. And it ain't the voodoo that the bad mojo, the bad press that it gets. It doesn't need to be there. I would way prefer to have 1 paper thin coat of polyester body filler over top of a panel and then primed and painted than have so many layers and episodes of priming and blocking that at some points got 1/8 of an inch of primer on there. Because if you take a big rock chip out of that, when the rock chip hits the paint, it's going to hit the paint, it's going to hit the sealer, and it's going to hit that primer, and it's going to whack all that out of there in one great big chip. But if you don't have that depth on there, your chip ain't going to be that deep. If it ain't got that much product to pull off of it, well, then it ain't gonna, is it? So I don't really know what else to tell you. Sheeting a panel like that, it ain't always about getting the show car mirror image visual down the side of the car where the horizon isn't interrupted by nothing on the side of the car because it's absolutely perfect. Sometimes that winds up being a byproduct of saving time. Believe it or not, it's true. I've been doing this more than a couple of times, and it's true. And I will do that, what I just described, I will be doing to this door. I've already started it on that door. I flipped it over to demonstrate that you can't pick and file the damn thing. But I've already started on that door. I've already done my large areas of filler work. And then now today, I will skim coat that entire door, and then I will go get myself. These doors have kind of got a crown to them. So I got a big Durablock that takes like, I think it takes almost 2 full sheets of paper. It'll cover this much of this door anyways, but it's got a curve. Because these doors, believe it or not, they got a bit of a crown to them. And yeah, it ain't going to take me the time. And then once it's done, I'll prime it and block it, and we'll be there. I don't really know if you got anything out of that, but that's what I got. Cut.